Well, it's a bit late, but sometimes that happens when you miss a week of filming and forget to actually update your schedule, and so have everything technically a week off. But, things happen. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to be doing my slightly late wrap up for the month of August and talking about what I read there. And August is a month that started out pretty slow. It took me quite a while to actually finish a book because I had some things ongoing, but just was taking absolutely forever. And usually I'm a little bit slower after readathon month, but I was planning to get through a lot of review copies. That was the focus, and we sort of did that. I had more I would have liked to get to as well, and some that didn't work out. But we'll go ahead and talk about them. So first off, what I spent a good chunk of my month on was Shadow of the Smoking Mountain by Howard Andrew Jones, which is phenomenal. It is really, really great, and it's the third book in the Chronicles of Hanover, and it's also kind of ending the arc of the first three books. I cannot recommend this enough, and I will say I'm not really sure what's going to be going on with the rest of the series because if you have not heard, Howard Andrew Jones, it was announced, has terminal brain cancer, and so is kind of just taking a step back. So not sure what's going there. Definitely, wishing him and his family the best. It was incredibly sad to hear that. An author that I've interacted with, had on the channel. I've been really recommending his books and loving them. That he sent me some of his books, and just very, very sad to hear that. But I very much recommend checking out the book. I did do a video kind of talking about this book and the series, but I feel like I shouldn't have started with the sad news. But that was the first in chronological order. So we're just gonna move on from there, and go from there. But yeah, so definitely recommend checking out. What I ended up doing, because pretty much all of my review copies were either ebook or physical, I had very few that had any sort of audio available, is I ended up throwing on The Magic Engineer by L.A. Modesitt Jr., which is the third Recluse book, which very cool cover, by the way, I'll note. And just kind of listening to this one, and I started this, I stopped it, I did this off and on throughout the month as well, just because I was struggling to kind of get into anything crazy besides Hanover, which I was reading really slowly. This, though, I ended up enjoying. I think I like this a little bit more than book 2. This has been generally, all solid 4 stars, but this started out seeming like it was going to be a little bit repetitive, which some of them, so far, some of the plot lines and characters are a little bit, goes in a pretty different direction. It also adds a lot more really interesting world building, really interesting background for things, because this happens after book 2, but before the first book, because the chronology is kind of messed up. So it was really interesting seeing kind of the next step where things went. So I'm still definitely enjoying this series as well. Then getting into talking about some review copies, we have Born to be King, the Epic of Kautila, which I'm probably mispronouncing, by Deepak Thomas. This is also, I was reading this throughout the month as well, and I stopped for a while to try and finish up Hanover and then move on to other things as well. This, though, I enjoyed. I felt it had a really strong beginning and a strong ending, but it kind of lost me a little bit in the middle. I will say this is one where it is like South Asia, like Indian inspired, based on some of that mythos and looking there. So it was really refreshing seeing the different takes on some of that, and the kind of the feel of it, and just doing things a little bit differently, which was really, really refreshing. And so it kind of pulled me in right away. I felt that some of the characters, including the main character, felt a bit flat at times. And there was just some like odd choices with like dialogue and like language that was in there that didn't seem totally fitting. I think some of it comes down from, this feels like it's written by somebody who like English wasn't first language, and that sounds bad, and I don't mean it to sound like, oh, it's unreadable. Like, no, it's very correct, but some of the choices feel like it's not necessarily what you would use had that been the language you were born with. So it just felt in some places it felt almost like a translation, even though it's not. And so that was a little different, but the ending then kind of pulled back and was really interesting. I have the second book of this as well. I don't know when I'll get to, but there were a lot of interesting stuff here about. Well, I'll be doing a review of this, so I'll probably just talk more about it then. I was about to jump in and talk more, but yeah, we'll do that. So then I have to mention, I read the first 2 of Penwick's Progress, the first 2 stories here, actually in July, and I just figured, I'll finish the last one, and I got about halfway, and I just wasn't super engaged. I was doing audio at the time, for the Penrix Fox, and so I think I'll just go back and finish it physical at some point, but I never ended up getting back to it, so this was just a not for now. I enjoyed the first two, just like I said, I didn't have a ton of time, it didn't end up getting back to it. And then I did the Martian Chronicles, which was the book for the Ray Bradbury Book Club over in Jake the Bookish Drummer's Discord, and I enjoyed it. Not as much as the Illustrated Man, I have to say, but I still did enjoy it. And it's I'm really glad I did the Illustrated Man first. I did do a review for this as well, if you saw, just kind of talking about it, because I think the Martian Chronicles is really the most well-known one, and I remember, like, I read some of it in school at some point, some, like, at least a story or two, I think, from it, and wasn't crazy about it. And it's one of the reasons I never really checked out more Bradbury, I feel like, because in the back of my head, I'm like, eh. And if I would have started with the Martian Chronicles, I would have been a lot less likely to want to, but I really liked the Illustrated Man. And so because of that, I'm still really interested to see what more Bradbury has to offer as well. And then did do, for the Killing of Kings, some more Howard Andrew Jones. This was a part of Buddy Read in Discord, and some people were going to be reading it, so I'm like, I'll jump in and I'll do audio, because I had previously gave my copies to Andrew to try and get him to read, and the audio is on Scribd, so it was there. And this was kind of a fun one, because this was my favorite book in the series when I read it, and it went in some different directions than what I wanted to. It was a really solid series, but going back and kind of seeing everything that was actually set up that was there, and kind of seeing some things a little bit differently, knowing where it's going, I had a really good time with this. So I still really enjoyed this as well. It's another one I recommend. It's very different from Hanuvar for sure, but it's a fun series also. So I gave that a read. And then getting back to review copies, I then tried out The Sins of Kings by Daniel Thomas Valente. This is book 1 in The Last of the Valkyries. This one did end up being a DNF for me, and I will say it's one of those things where I think it's more of a me thing, because this felt just a little bit too reminiscent of some other things for me, and there were a couple of just particular scenes that just clashed with me. And so the funny thing is, I think a lot of people would like this, and it's because of the fact that the authors who I had similar complaints for, that were new authors whose books I ended up DNFing, are Zach Argyle and Ryan Cahill. So I know those are really popular and people like them. I'm not saying that you'll necessarily like this if you really like those, but I had similar complaints. So not to say that this is a bad book, but for me, it just was, it didn't do enough to set itself apart from other things. And so it just made it, it made it not really work that well for me, which is something I've had come up with books before, sometimes newer authors, but that's where we landed on that one. And then we had Absolution by Jeff Vandermeer, which I've been gesturing with the wrong hand. It's over here. I always put it over here too, so I don't know what we're doing. But Absolution by Jeff Vandermeer, which was the 4th Southern Reach novel. I do have a review for this one as well, which I had to be careful to kind of toe the line, because you don't want to know a whole lot about it before you go in. I said there too, I think it's a must read if you're a fan of Southern Reach, and I think it's better than books 2 and 3. Books 2 and 3, I know a lot of people were lukewarm on, although this one is like 70% of it is great, and the last 30% for me is a different POV, and I clashed really hard with, to the extent that it probably would have been a DNF if that's how the book started, and if it wouldn't have been book 4 in a series already. But really, really great for the most part. Some stuff I didn't like at the end, but you can check out that review if you want to know more about that one as well. And then we unfortunately had a couple of other review copy DNFs, which included The Eerie Light of the Eclipse by Christian Carstow. This one was really interesting. It's a bit more speculative fiction, which the author did tell me, and it's somebody who is present at an eclipse in 2024. It's kind of based around that, and they're with their wife and their child, and then when the eclipse happens, they're like kind of remembering the eclipse 7 years before, and then all of a sudden they have like traveled somehow back, and just they're back 7 years ago, and it's kind of going from there. So really interesting ideas. For me, it just, the writing did feel a little bit rough at points for me, where the ideas were really good, but the dialogue and just some of the other, the way things were progressing just didn't feel particularly natural, and so I ended up just bouncing a little bit off of that one. And then the other one we had is To End Every War by Raymond Wilkinson. This one is about these 6 different women, come from very different backgrounds and paths, and like mystical races and stuff, who are all at a school and are going to be involved in some big stuff too. And this one it's a very long book. And part of it was I felt like there was a lot of repetition at the beginning, where we were seeing the same kind of scenes from these different POVs, as well as when I realized that 6 young women, older, teenage girls at a magic school kind of place was just probably not going to work for me either. I think I must not have realized this when I accepted it, because I feel like I'm not probably the audience for that. I will say, though, I did talk to the author, and he's confirmed he actually split this into 2 books and revised some of the repetitive parts. So I think that, yeah, if it's something that sounds a little more up your alley, it's been some of my complaints have probably been addressed and wouldn't be an issue anymore as well. So that's always good to note as well. We'll note that I didn't actually finish Born to Be King or The Magic Engineer into September, but we're just going to pretend that didn't happen because I wanted to keep this mostly for the review copy, ARC August, whatever I was calling it. So I'm just kind of mentioning there, and I won't talk about them for the September one. But so technically I finished them before filming this, so we can just pretend that it was intentional. But that is really it for what we had going on in August. So let me know what you read in August and your thoughts on any of the stuff that I read here too. I definitely had some ups and some downs. It was a bit of a mixed month, but it happens. So yeah, I'd love to see your thoughts. Make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the links in the description as always for the Patreon if you want to support what I do, as well as the Wizardly Enclave Discord if you want to chat books, whether any of these books, other books, really anything at all. It's a lot of fun. We'd love to have you. And of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.